There is a silence beneath the noise of the world, older than language, deeper than memory. And from that silence something calls. It does not shout. It does not explain. It hums like the earth herself breathing in the dark. A whisper rising from deep below, not from molten core, but from a realm of luminous stillness untouched by time. A place the ancients once knew, not as myth, but as mirror. They called it many names. But the one that remains, like a soft drumbeat beneath centuries of forgetting, is Agartha. This is not a story you are entering. It is a ritual, a gentle passageway back to what you already carry, to a truth buried not by the earth, but by the rush of thought. Agartha is not something to be believed in. It is something to be remembered, not with the mind, but with the pulse, not with history, but with resonance. The light there does not come from the sun. It comes from soul. It shines in tones, not colors. It lives in frequency, not form. And it awaits, not above or below, but in the stillness behind your breath where time dissolves and something ancient begins to stir. You are not here to be informed. You are here to be opened, to feel the hum beneath your feet, and to realize it has always been yours. Now we begin, not forward, but inward. We were taught to believe that the earth is solid, that beneath the crust lies mantle, then molten core, a model so familiar, we rarely question it. It's become more than geology. It's become a framework for reality itself. But what if this model, this comforting illusion, is incomplete? What if beneath our feet lies not only pressure and rock, but space, stillness, and presence? Despite our advances, humanity has only ever drilled about 7 miles down, a mere scratch on a planet over 7,900 miles wide. That's less than 0.2% of Earth's diameter. The rest, the 99.8% we claim to know, remains unvisited, inferred, imagined, built on seismic echoes and extrapolated data. And yet we speak of the Earth's interior as if it's been walked, mapped, mastered. This is where the illusion begins to unravel. When you stand barefoot on the ground, do you feel solidity, or do you feel a kind of hum? When you lie down in silence, is the earth silent, or does it seem to breathe beneath you? What if that breath is not symbolic but literal, not in air but in energy? A pulse you've ignored, not because it isn't there, but because its frequency is finer than thought. Some indigenous traditions speak of the earth as a living being, not as poetry, but as cosmology. They say she has a heart, a memory, a hollow womb where wisdom sleeps, not empty but sacred, not vacant but waiting. Science gave us a model, but it did not give us truth. Truth is not just what is provable. It is what returns to us in silence, in resonance, in the haunting familiarity of stories we never learned, yet somehow already know. What if we were never meant to know the earth from the outside alone? What if true understanding comes from entering, not physically, but spiritually, into her depths? What if the hollow earth is not a hole in the ground, but a forgotten layer of consciousness? You see, illusion doesn't only exist in what's false. Sometimes, illusion is what's incomplete. We stare at the crust and call it all. We measure heat and call it truth. But beneath those figures lies a question, one that science can't measure but your soul can feel. Is it possible that we are standing on more than rock? Is it possible that we've mistaken the surface for the center. What if the real core isn't made of iron but of light? The ancient mystics knew something. Something we forgot when we traded inner knowing for outer authority. They didn't dig, they tuned. They didn't analyze, they listened. And what they found wasn't empty. It was Agartha, not hidden beneath earth, but hidden beneath illusion. Across the fabric of human history, there are stories that refuse to die. They reappear not in the footnotes of textbooks, but in dreams, myths, and sacred whispers. One such story is that of a world beneath the world, not of molten stone, but of sacred light. A hidden civilization untouched by time, remembered by soul. This place has many names, but the most persistent, the most resonant, is Agartha. In the Vedic traditions of ancient India, sages spoke of Shambhala, a realm hidden beneath the Himalayas, home to radiant beings devoted to wisdom and balance. Not a heaven above, but a sanctum below. In Tibet, lamas guarded tales of subterranean cities, linked by tunnels that extended beyond geography and into states of consciousness. They claimed that those with a pure heart and clear mind could access these realms, not by walking, but by vibrating into alignment. Meanwhile, Norse mythology spoke of Svartalfheimr, a luminous underworld inhabited by beings of great intelligence and mysterious power. The Hopi told of ant people who once sheltered them underground during the destruction of past worlds. Native South American traditions spoke of secret worlds beneath the Andes, accessible through sacred caves and resonance with the land. These stories weren't traded, shared, or copied across continents. They rose independently across oceans, across languages, across centuries. And yet the echoes are the same. A realm beneath, a people of light. A knowledge protected not because it is weak, but because it is sacred. Even in modern times, the story refuses to fade. Admiral Richard Byard, a U.S. naval officer known for his polar expeditions, allegedly wrote of a journey past the North Pole where he encountered not ice, but a land lush with vegetation, where flying discs hovered in silence and beings of peace expressed concern over humanity's path of destruction. He described an inner sun, a world of harmony, a civilization untouched by war. Olaf Jansen, a Norwegian sailor, claimed to have sailed into the earth through a polar opening, encountering giant beings, eternal daylight, and a world vibrating with serene intelligence. When he returned, he was dismissed, mocked, and silenced like so many before him. Still, the pattern persists. These are not tales of conquest or glory. They are not calls to empire or discovery. They are invitations, quiet, humble, unwavering, to remember. Not just that Agartha exists, but that we once knew it. That somewhere in our collective memory, this place lives on. The consistency of these accounts across civilizations begs a deeper question. How could cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years speak the same story, if not from some shared source beyond the visible? Not a story passed down, but a frequency tuned into. Maybe Agartha is not just a place beneath the earth, but a tone beneath perception, a harmonic truth that rings through the soul when it becomes still enough to hear it. And maybe those who dwell there have been waiting, not to be found but to be felt, not to be discovered but to be remembered. There is no map that leads to Agartha. No compass will point the way, no machine will chart its path, because Agartha is not reached through location, it is entered through vibration, not traveled to but remembered through alignment. You cannot approach it with effort. You can only become still enough to match its tone. Agartha exists, yes, but not on the grid we are taught to trust. It doesn't obey the laws of conquest, of exploration, of measure and control. Its gates do not yield to force. They open in the presence of resonance. And that resonance is not found outside you. It is the forgotten music within. You may ask, if Agartha is real, then why is it hidden? But perhaps the better question is, what is hiding you from Agartha? The truth is, its gates have never been locked. They vibrate at a frequency too subtle for noise, a state of stillness too delicate for the restless mind. It is not Agartha that is out of reach. It is our own awareness, scattered, distracted, deafened by the constant hum of thought. To approach the threshold, you must first shift from seeking to seeing, not with the eyes but with presence. Begin now, if you wish, not with analysis but with breath. Let the air come in gently. Let it leave without effort. Place a hand on your chest, not to measure but to feel. Beneath the heartbeat there is a deeper rhythm. Beneath the rhythm a tone. That tone, soft, silent, steady, is the same frequency Agartha responds to. It is the signature of the soul before it was covered in names and noise. This is the entry point. Not a cave in a mountain, but a quieting in the self. Those who have claimed to reach Agartha throughout history were not warriors but watchers, not discoverers but rememberers. They emptied more than they carried. Their path was not lit by maps, but by surrender. Some said the gates appeared in dreams. Others saw them in the spaces between waking and sleep. Still others walked into caverns and found the walls melt into passageways when their minds had become completely still. But always, always, it was the state within that opened what was hidden. The world has taught us to strive, to push, to dominate. But the path to Agartha moves in the opposite direction. Inward, downward. Not into the earth's core, but into the center of your own being. To the one watching thought, to the one hearing this. You are the gatekeeper, and the gate. And in the quiet, when you release the need to find, something begins to shift. The veil grows thinner. The hum grows louder. Not because Agartha has changed, but because you have returned. Returned to stillness. Returned to frequency. Returned to the place where no path is needed because the door is already within. What if the stories of a world beneath our feet were never about geography? What if they were always about you? The idea of Agartha as a physical realm draws the curious. But the deeper truth, the sacred metaphor, whispers that the true inner earth is your own inner self. Not a hollow planet, but the hollowed-out space beneath the noise of who you think you are. A realm not of rock and soil, but of presence, of remembrance, of clarity undisturbed by surface storms. The civilizations said to dwell in Agartha live in harmony, peace, telepathic unity, not because they are alien, but because they represent what we forgot. That life doesn't demand accumulation, it invites resonance. That truth doesn't arrive with volume but with vibration. That we are not meant to become anything, but to return. Agartha, in this light, becomes the mirror of the human soul unbound by programming. It is the you beneath the roles, the you beneath the goals, the you that existed before comparison and fear rewrote your frequency. That self still lives, buried not in the earth, but in the shadowed basement of attention, waiting for the moment you stop performing and begin listening. The great forgetting did not happen because of one moment. It happened slowly as we moved upward into mind, into productivity, into layers of identity stacked like masks. And every layer moved us further from the core. But the core remains, not altered, not gone, just waiting. Imagine for a moment that Agartha is not far away but folded inward, that its tunnels are the pathways between your thoughts, that its light is the glow you feel when you sit alone, in silence, and remember how it felt to just be, to breathe, to know nothing and yet feel whole. In that space, morality is not rule-based, it is resonance-based. Actions are not judged by consequence but by vibration. No one needs to tell you what is right because you can feel the frequency of rightness pulsing through your being. There is no punishment. There is only misalignment and the invitation to return. This is not fantasy. This is your forgotten self. The version of you not shaped by school, news, or fear. The version that doesn't argue with truth but vibrates with it. The version that speaks less, listens more, and somehow knows that all the noise was never necessary. This is Agartha, not beneath your feet, but beneath your noise. And when you remember that, the earth no longer feels solid, it feels alive, it feels spacious, it feels like home. Those who spoke of Agartha were not always met with curiosity. They were met with silence, a silence loud with dismissal, with ridicule, with erasure. Explorers, monks, sailors, visionaries. They didn't just face disbelief, they were removed, reclassified, rewritten. Their testimonies buried not beneath the ground but beneath layers of public forgetting. But why? Why would the notion of a peaceful, enlightened civilization living beyond the reach of modern control be so threatening? Because if Agartha is real, truly real, then everything changes. It means history is incomplete. It means science must humble itself. And it means the human being is far more powerful than we've been allowed to believe. To accept Agartha is to admit that there is a part of Earth and a part of ourselves that cannot be charted, predicted, or governed. It is to admit that reality is deeper than fact, and that truth often comes not in loud declarations, but in silent remembrance. So those in power, not always malicious, but often afraid, chose to mock instead of explore, to erase instead of consider. Because what they feared most wasn't the place itself. It was what it represented. Agartha represents sovereignty of spirit. It is a reality not controlled by systems, not structured by economies, not licensed by authority. And when people begin to remember their connection to it, to the stillness, to the clarity, to the inner truth, they begin to awaken in ways no institution can contain. This is why the silencing happened, not to protect secrets, but to protect structures. Yet truth does not disappear when ignored. It echoes. It finds new ways to surface, through dreams, through symbols, through strange moments of déjà vu when something in you remembers what you were told could never be real. This isn't a call to rebellion. It's a call to remembering, not to overthrow, but to outgrow. When you return to that tone within, the one Agartha listens for, you don't need proof. You don't need permission. You simply begin to feel clear. You begin to live not as an echo of systems, but as a voice of your own alignment. And that, perhaps, is what was always feared most. Not that you'd find Agartha, but that you'd realize. It was never lost, only buried. And now, as the silence thins, as the hum grows louder in your chest, as the stories return in dreams and symbols, the great forgetting begins to reverse, not with anger, but with awareness, not to expose a lie, but to remember the truth. You were never meant to find Agartha in the world. You were meant to remember it in yourself, not as a place below your feet, but as the space within your being that was never touched by fear, never broken by noise, never shaped by anything outside of truth. We have walked far in time, in thought, in struggle. We have scaled mountains, explored stars, split atoms. But in all that seeking, we forgot the most ancient direction, inward, into the pulse that lives beneath the chest, into the quiet that sings beneath the mind, into the stillness where the world doesn't speak, but the soul does. Agartha is not gone. It has always been here, but it closes itself gently to the hurried, to the distracted, to the one clinging to control. It waits quietly for the one who stops, who softens, who listens. And when you do, when you stop trying to find and instead begin to feel, the gate appears. Not before you, but within you. Close your eyes now. Feel the breath. Not as a task, but as a remembering. Inhale. And as you do, imagine light moving up from the earth, not from outside, but from inside, from the deep, luminous core beneath all thought. Exhale, and let what is not yours fall away. This rhythm, this simple return, is the tone that opens the gate. Not the gate to a hidden world, but the gate to the self you buried beneath the surface of becoming. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to prove anything. You only need to open, to allow the stillness to become spacious, to let the old noise dissolve. And there, in that gentle silence, you will feel it. Not a place, not even a memory, but a presence. Agartha, alive inside you, still waiting. Still humming, still home.